Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today, I have some fascinating channelings, fairly recent, from Quo. If you don't know who Quo is, check out my playlist on Quo. Quo is a collection of higher entities that channel through a group called LL Research, in particular Jim McCarty and Carla Ruckert. And they ask spiritual questions, and much of it is very profound. We've covered Quo on a variety of different topics, and today's are super fascinating. We discuss offering service in response to conflicting attitudes towards the pandemic, broad versus specific compassion, dealing with intense empathic energies, and purity. So we begin on January 5th, 2022. Jim is channeling. I am Quo, and am with this instrument at this time. We are pleased to greet you in love and in light of the one infinite creator. We come this evening, as always, to exercise each instrument that the practice of channeling might become ever more firmly established within each instrument, so that which you call the Confederation philosophy of seeking and serving the one creator might be shared more fluently, or inspiringly and more practically as well. We would at this time ask if there might be a question with which we may begin. Austin says, yes, Quo, we have a question sent in from A1 who writes, for the most part of my adulthood, I've been struggling with the following circumstances. I have a healthy level of compassion for humanity as a whole. I have tremendous empathy for minorities and groups that are suffering worldwide. I understand often deplorable situations, underprivileged groups regardless of the national, financial, racial, or ethnic background. I take this from the perspective of service to others as generally proper alignment. Yet, when dealing with certain attitudes and characters in a daily life, I fail quite often to show the same kind of respect, compassion, and understanding. This is unrelated again to culture, race, or background. It is purely attitude related. I am aware that certain very specific attitudes trigger me, and this might be personally related or might be a form of conditioning, or perhaps karmic. I guess I built myself an ample dose of catalyst, hopefully to overcome this predicament. Yet this dichotomy of general and specific feelings and ability to empathize is very puzzling, and it's worrisome to me. Can you reflect and advise on the situation? Please, since I feel that many others might have a similar dichotomy present in their daily and general makeup. I am Quo, and I am aware of your query, my brother. Before we begin our reply, we would as always ask you to grant us the simple favor of seeing and accepting those words and concepts we offer in reply to the query as our opinions. And we hope that you will take those words and opinions that have meaning to you, and without a second thought leave others behind. We would not wish to be a stumbling block in any seeker's journey, for we are not ultimate authorities. We are your brothers, sisters, who seek the one as do you, and who have our own distortions to deal with. We believe that this gives us a leg up, shall we say, to be able to speak to those distortions you describe as particularly troubling to you, and why this might be the case. When you're able to see and accept people of all races, genders, and creeds, nationalities, various other distortions as being equal to any, including yourself, and that you have compassion over such entities. You wish them well, have no problem with them, and wonder why it is that you, in your daily round of activities, find that there are people with certain attitudes or behaviors that trigger a kind of harsh reaction in your being, a kind of perception that you feel is distorted in a way that is very hard to understand or make sense of. We can suggest to you, my brother, that you, as all conscious seekers of truth with open hearts, have challenges within the incarnational pattern that are set there by you and your guides and or higher self, that you may focus on these distortions, these attitudes, these behaviors that are troubling, in order that you might not only be challenged to understand them, but might make the journey necessary to see how they are an integral part of your own unfolding spiritual path. Each conscious seeker of truth, such as yourself, has planned the general framework of the life pattern, so that at certain times within the life pattern, there will be presented the opportunity to go beyond the current capacity to accept various behaviors, thoughts, and attitudes that you had previously been unable to accept. This is what you might call a spiraling journey, where you are able to do this upon a certain level of challenge or experience, then this ability to see an other self as deserving of your compassion and your support and your inspirational efforts to blend energies with them. Then, this accumulated, shall we say, spiritual power may then be set in motion to spiral even higher or further along your spiritual path. As you're able to take these behaviors and thoughts and attitudes into the meditative state and consider them with the scrutiny and conscientiousness of the adept, shall we say, the one who seeks to create changes in consciousness, then you have accumulated a certain kind of spiritual power that you can feel your journey further along the path into unity with the one creator. As each challenge is looked at within the meditative state and seen to be a portion of one's own self, as you attempt to balance the negative response to such behaviors with the positive response, then you're coming to know more and more about yourself regarding how you are a portion of the one creator, as is the entity standing before you in meditation. This entity has given you the opportunity to balance dislike or disgust with acceptance and love. In many other ways, you'll be challenged to find an acceptance of another entity, which then represents an acceptance of yourself that will further propel you on your spiritual path. As you are able to do this throughout your life pattern with various entities, behaviors, attitudes, beliefs, creeds, and so forth, you'll become more and more what might be called a 360-degree being. That is, you will see that you are all things, all attitudes, all people, all behavior. This is the journey of a lifetime. This is the journey that each conscious spiritual seeker is upon, and indeed all entities are upon this journey. Some, however, are not conscious of this journey and are awaiting the realization that this is also a path that they shall tread at some point in their incarnation. If not this one, then perhaps the next or the next. So the equation, as we may call it, is that as you come to know yourself and to accept yourself throughout your life pattern and see an accumulation of a great variety of qualities that you accept now that were not acceptable before, you are in effect becoming the one infinite creator. This is the goal of the journey of the life path of many incarnations of all entities within each density of the octave of beingness. We wish you Godspeed, shall we say, on this journey, returning home to the one infinite creator. Question. Yes, Cole, we have one sent in from A2 who writes, as someone who has always been strongly empathic, it can be distracting, depressing, or overwhelming to be a person here, being keenly aware of others' feelings, aware to the point of something along the lines of what I'd call auric infringement or entanglement or something else. Someone else's signal gets mixed with my own. I still struggle at times with letting others' feelings overwhelm me. I'm sure the answer is something like respond with love and or take this into your daily meditation. And I know that on some level the answer is available to anyone at any time, as we are all the same one creator. But if there are any tips or tricks available, I'd be curious what might be suggested. We understand the query, my brother. A helpful reply may be made beginning with the idea that upon your planet at this time, the personal energies relating to the energy field of a particular entity are becoming heightened across many entities as the energies of fourth density rise up in your planetary sphere, and also within and around the entities who live upon your planet. While the situation that you described is acute, as you have expressed in your words, we may assure you that it is a condition that can be worked with, softened, and attenuated through insightful and careful attention to your own energy levels and the expression of such during your daily activities upon your planet at this time. For with the heightened nature of personal energies and planetary energies in general, there's also to come commitment rising up in your inherent ability to, we may say, cope with, work with such energy changes such as you described. At the same time that you sense a heightened awareness of the energies of other selves around you, or even those, as you mentioned, who are not in your vicinity but who draw your compassion toward their situations, you may also attune yourself to your own energies on every level of your being, your physical energies, your emotional and mental energies, and your spiritual energies. We may suggest that once or perhaps twice per day in your cycle of life, that you go within for a brief moment or moments of meditation, attuning yourself to these various levels of energy personal to yourself, becoming aware in that heightened way of the sensitivities of these energies, just as you would when finding yourself near another self who has energies, thoughts, feelings that you sense and that may overwhelm you. You may do this with yourself first before going out into your day, becoming aware of the sensitivities within yourself. We may say, accept yourself and love yourself for the gift that these energies bring you in terms of insights, understandings, and compassion for all living things. And we may say, as you are aware of the full complement of these energies in your levels of being, bathe yourself. Bathe all of these levels of your being in the love and the light of the Creator. Know that you are bathed in this loving light from which you came in the very beginning, when perhaps energies were not as sensitized as they are today. But this light and love is intelligent, that you bathe yourself with. It can soothe, heal, protect your own sensitive energies. Thus, you may, after a few moments of bathing in this helpful light, healing light and love, you may go out into your day with a feeling of confidence in the awareness that your energies are balanced and that you serve your first in your daily journeys. Thus, you may find interactions with others to be of a more palatable, acceptable nature, so that you may have what you may feel to you to be a greater degree of groundedness, of natural love for self and other selves as you go about your day. The energies of others do not impinge upon your purpose in life for that day, your well-being, your peace and happiness. We may suggest that at the end of every day that you attune once more to these levels of energy field, as we described in the morning routine. Do so likewise, we may suggest to you in the evening to again bathe all levels of your being, all the energies in your field with this light and love that is intelligent, that is healing to lighten your senses of self. Perhaps without effort, letting the light and love of these healing vibrations simply wash away all of the energies of other selves that may have unintentionally been taken in by your own heightened awareness, by your own empathy and caring. Let what is not yours to bear, to solve, or to heal be lovingly washed away into the love and light of the Creator. Let the great original thought of love that lived in those energies from the Creator assist you in restoring yourself, your energies to what can rightly be felt and known as your own in a balanced field state. At the end of each day in your cycle of life upon your planet, we may also suggest, if this thought appeals to your sensibilities, that you may also send out love and light to all those with whom you had contact that day or upon whom your thoughts rested, and to any other entities or groups of entities for whom you felt compassion. Again, it is a suggestion you may take if it feels right to you in your heart that sending out love and light to all those others may uplift you, as well as the love and light may uplift them. We hope this set of suggestions may meet with your understanding. We ask that you may take and utilize what may feel right to you in your heart and leave the rest. And ever we suggest, meditate to listen for those answers beyond what we have suggested that may help you in more specific ways pertinent to your own situations and relationships. We thank you for this query, my brother, and we are with this instrument. We hope that this response satisfies the essence of your query. We are those of Quo. Question: Yes, Quo. I have a question from E. The ongoing pandemic and the response of government to it has caused great division in our societies and brought many opposing worldviews to the forefront: anti-authoritarian versus authoritarian, risk-avoidance versus risk acceptance, different views on medicine and health, and so forth, where in each area both groups seem to be drifting away further from each other. What can we do to bring these groups closer together again, to find some common ground, and in general, relieve some of the intense stress that people are feeling? Are there any spiritual principles involved or ways that we can find balance and relate to the divisions? Quo says, we are Quo, and we are aware of the query, my brother. This query is one that we sense weighs very heavily on many minds of those seekers who are aware of our words, and we are grateful to the one known as E for offering us a chance to speak to these circumstances upon your planet and within your societies, and to offer our own insight into the spiritual principles that may be viewed and utilized for the positive seeker wishing to offer their service in the midst of what seems to be quite turbulent waters. The circumstances are born from relatively complicated and what you might say new energy upon your planet. We take this opportunity to reiterate a central point that we often repeat, for it is often the most relevant point for any seeker contemplating such complicated issues, and that is that no matter the circumstance, no matter the peoples or attitudes present within any circumstance, and the dynamic energies dancing in what can appear to be chaos when one views such situations, that all are the Creator. Each individual and each situation is but the Creator wearing certain masks, interacting with itself in order to experience itself in more and more significant ways. This is undertaken by the Creator in the hopes that one of its sparks that has forgotten its origins, such as the entity who poses this question, may become aware enough to ask such a question, to realize that they feel called to serve and to offer their heart, and to undertake the difficult journey to do so despite the fact there is no clear answer to how that may be achieved. This is the beginning of the role of faith on the journey of the seeker. To witness such a situation, as described in this query, to feel called to offer oneself in service, yet see no clear opportunity, but nevertheless trust that an opportunity may present itself to one who continues to seek to share the love of the Creator. We are glad and honored to take part in this seeking with you. The core or heart of these circumstances described within this query may be in many ways traced to the incoming fourth density energies upon your planet. There are certain trends and technologies that seem to accentuate the divisions within your society, to create opposing energies and bring people to come together in what has been called certain social bubbles and define themselves in opposition to other social bubbles. This may be seen as the questioner has framed the situation as a series of opposing attitudes. We understand that this may be puzzling, how energies of fourth density that one may liken to unconditional love and understanding may create such a situation. These energies, as they stream to your planet in ever-increasing ways, cause each individual to express their unconscious natures more and more in an external way. The certain technologies that take part in this process, what this instrument is familiar with as such technologies as social media or media in general, that tends to influence one's consciousness, are not accidental. And while they've been used by entities with agendas, they have been manifested upon your planet in response to the onslaught of these energies that are calling each individual to become aware of how they are projecting their unconscious natures out into the world. And one way that they help do this is to accentuate these opposing group mentalities. This accentuation results in the seemingly chaotic situations described by the questioner. Just understanding this context may help the seeker wishing to alleviate and calm these energies within the self and within the other self, simply by grasping the context within which these dynamics take place. We hope that there is some small comfort and understanding that this is part of a process that is necessary in order for your planet to transition to the fourth density, and that at the end of this process, at the end of this very bumpy road, these choppy waters that each seeker has set sail upon, there is a destination that speaks much more clearly to the love of the Creator. The storm will wash away and reveal a deeper truth that will be available to all upon your planet with time. As to what any individual may do to help alleviate or bring love and understanding to these situations, we suggest looking to those contributing factors that cause entities to dig in, so to speak, to defend certain positions, certain attitudes with such fervent certainty. The so-called pandemic upon your planet has created an intense catalyst, specifically creating such fervent attitudes. Part of the how of the situation is that this pandemic has introduced a great question of unknown and uncertain futures. For all entities upon your planet, like a lightning bolt, the catalyst called the pandemic arrived and took hold of each individual's mind and heart upon your planet very suddenly and very strongly. And this caused a great illumination of just how uncertain the future is for each individual. It poses a great question of how to deal with this uncertainty. For many, this took form in addressing the situation head-on, understanding the specifics of the pandemic, and attempting to bring all powers to bear upon it in order to tame it. For others, this uncertainty caused a desire to remain unfazed and put them in opposition with those who felt this was a collective responsibility that all within the collective should be addressing. These attitudes, as each seeker is certainly aware, have been energized and manipulated somewhat by those who feel they can take advantage of these opposing dynamics. And this manipulation, we understand, may bring some concern to the seeker. Yet we offer the thought that it does not change how the individual seeker may address the situation. At the core of this, for the seeker to recognize the fear and anger and strong desire within each individual and how they respond to the pandemic. The very strong attitudes and seemingly increasing division have at their root the fear of the uncertain future that this pandemic and the response to the pandemic may bring. In grasping this root, empathy may be offered, no matter one's attitude or opinion of the circumstances. One may then interact with those about one, whether they believe society should be reacting in one way or another way. And understand that for many individuals, despite seemingly opposite reactions, they are operating from the same point, from the same distortion, and are expressing themselves in ways that are attempting to reveal the self to the self, attempting to soothe this uncertain fear, to bring light to the unconscious aspects of the reaction to the so-called pandemic. We suggest to offer one's love in disagreement, to cultivate a gentleness, to plant seeds of attempting to understand and to connect, and to water those seeds continually despite any circumstance, despite any uncertainty one may have within themselves about the future, and to cultivate a shared understanding among all other selves that despite any individual reaction, you are all in the situation together. And finding a way to respond in a unified and love-filled manner is a very noble and significant endeavor. Ultimately, this situation asks each individual to do this work for themselves. We understand that a seeker wishing to bring unification to divided peoples may find frustration and failure. The catalyst upon your planet is very intense, and as fourth density beckons, it will intensify, eventually taking the attention of each individual and forcing them, if you will, to address their inner darkness, their inner shadows, those inner natures that have gone unaddressed for many lifetimes. Any individual seeker wishing to help alleviate the situation may have their own opinions about how society as a whole may respond to any given crisis or catalyst. Yet we encourage you to contemplate instead of attempting to reform society and convince others how to behave or how to respond or convince them of impending doom or danger. Instead, offer one's light so that the individuals who are facing these inner shadows for the first time may be aided by your example, may be comforted by your love, may be guided by your gentle hand. For you are here to offer love, no matter what situation arises. There is no specific prescription for how to solve any situation that arises on your planet, except for abiding in the faith that love may transform any situation and bring light to all in due time. We again thank the one known as E for posing this question and wish to offer a final thought to any seeker who wishes to offer their love in these difficult times. Please know that we, the Confederation of Planets in service to the One Infinite Creator, join you in open hearts. If you could witness and see the amount of love being showered upon your planet, and open your heart to that love so that you may be empowered by it and pass it along from your perspective within the veil. Your inspiration would be infinite. You would have no doubt that though you have chosen quite a difficult and uncertain time to incarnate, you are exactly where you wish to be and exactly where you are needed. Moving to a channeling on December 13th, 2021. Question. Confederation sources speak of the pure seeker, the pure channel, pure desire, pure love and wisdom, and something of the process of purification. What does it mean to be pure? What is the value of being pure in any particular way? By what means does the seeker purify themselves? I am Quo, and greet each in love and in light this evening. Before we answer your query, we as always ask that simple perennial favor to take the words that we speak through each instrument and use them in any way that is beneficial to you. And the second part of the favor is to leave behind any words that are not useful to you at this time. If you will grant us these favors, as always, then we feel free to speak our opinions and share those opinions with you, those thoughts that may hopefully be able to answer your query as to the nature of purity. What is purity? And what value has purity? And then, with these two portions spoken, how then does a seeker become pure? These are the most salient questions, my friends. For as you are seekers of truth within the veil of the third density illusion, it is a process that you go through in every day of your life as you seek to become pure. By pure, we would say that you are of one quality, and that quality might be described as desire, the will to become able to shed all desires other than the seeking of the truth. For within your illusion, the truth is oftentimes not easily ascertained. The truth seems to be that which has increasing levels of meaning. As you begin to perceive the lower levels, then you ascend to greater and greater truths, and it is your purity of desire to travel this path of seeking the expanding nature of truth, the truth of the nature of the universe, the truth of your relationship to this universe, and of the one infinite creator, the truth of how you may best travel this path as you seek to become pure and desiring only to be able to apprehend this truth, the exercise of your will balanced with faith that such is possible. This type of purity is that which continues to become more and more the only quality of your being as you move forward on your journey of seeking the truth. Thus, the purity, as we would describe it, is that which contains no dross, no incidental qualities, no hindrances to perception. This is the work of the adept, my friends. Such purity is not easily achieved, and yet, as one continues to travel the path of seeking the truth, one continues to purify oneself. And this is a great value of so doing. For as you purify your desires, you are casting a seed within your mind-body-spirit complex. The seed of pure seeking, the seed that, when you fertilize it and water it with your attention more and more effectively, grows within you more strongly, more vibrantly, more expansively. This is a noble journey, my friends. There is no more noble journey, my friends. And how then does one accomplish this purification of the self? We would suggest that this is a process that is unique to each seeker of the truth, for each of you has an identity that represents a portion of the one infinite creator. This identity or quality, and we would say equality with the one creator, is that journey that you seek that does not travel into distant lands, but that travels within yourself. For this journey is to discover in some fashion unique to yourself how you are the one creator and how you become the one creator. Once again, though this journey continues for many millions of your years, as you would measure the densities of light that formed the creation of the one infinite creator, it is a journey that continues to be interiorized no matter the density of your dwelling. This is of the greatest value to any seeker of truth, to be upon this journey in such a conscious fashion. There is no other desire within the seeker other than to do the will of the one infinite creator, to become the will of the one infinite creator, to become the one infinite creator. At this time, we shall transfer this contact to the one known as Austin. We are Quo, we are now with this instrument. Through this instrument, we wish to express our gratitude for this instrument and this circle for its increasing fidelity towards the process of tuning and challenging. These rituals, performed repeatedly, act as a purification process for each individual instrument and the circle itself. And this increasing purity developed by the repeated act of these rituals allows us to join even more closely and express our thoughts in more intricate and meaningful ways. Our gratitude extends also to all those who are aware of our words and take them in with discernment and reflect to us the calling that we are joyed to respond to. This continuing contact offers us a chance to be of service, which is our greatest desire, one which we have continued to purify in our own seeking for much of what you call time. As we speak to the uniqueness of each individual's journey of purification, we are welcomed by certain distortions within this instrument that speak to its sensitivity towards the uniqueness of each individual's interpretation of certain spiritual concepts, especially those that we present to you through the instruments within this circle. This instrument is sensitive to what it calls semantics, and we appreciate this sensitivity, for it allows us to emphasize that as we speak of concepts such as purity and truth, that these words are meant first and foremost to be catalysts for each individual's inner journey, and are not intended to be exact prescriptions or instructions, though any guidance any seeker may find within these words we are very happy to accept. This is why we begin each of these sessions with our request that seekers utilize those words most useful for them, for we wish most of all to aid each seeker in that ongoing journey of inner discovery through offering concepts that spark the seeker's interest and inspiration and contemplation, more so than we wish to specifically guide seekers in understanding such concepts in specific ways. In this particular topic of purity, we find this disclaimer particularly important, for the concept of purity has historically among your peoples been used in ways which have not aided spiritual seekers upon their path. And we find that such a concept has an unusually high chance of becoming a stumbling block, of requiring seekers to perpetuate experience and require further incarnation rather than allowing the seeker to walk the straight and narrow path and come closer to the upward spiraling light that carries the seeker through the journey of densities. When examining how this concept may be misapplied in such a way, one may look to how the concept of purity can be used in terms of self-judgment, of finding that one does not measure to a certain ideal, and thus the ideal is judged as a failure. And this dynamic has been further exacerbated by religious systems and other spiritual philosophies, by necessitating that the seeker who does not match a certain requisite purity then repent and partake in certain activities intended to purify the self. These activities, when undertaken through threat of eternal suffering or through fear of prolonged difficulty in the afterlife, can cause the seeker to distort the concept of purity so that it becomes a drag upon the seeker's journey. This is a difficult concept to communicate, for it seems as though to any sensible seeker within your density that to measure oneself in terms of purity, one must necessarily judge oneself. We may do our best to resolve this seeming paradox by suggesting that this judgment is, as we have spoken, a certain semantical difficulty, for judgment can take the form of simple assessment of the self and understanding the self in comparison to some ideal, but then this comparison can take upon itself a charge of control and harshness towards the self, feelings of failure, and the feeling of necessitating self-punishment or types of self-flagellation in order to make up for what is seen as a failure. The root of this confusing concept may be seen in how certain systems of religion upon your planet have been influenced by forces known to you as the Wherein Empire to take what can be a legitimately positive tool for a positive seeker, such as the concept of purity and ideals, and turn it into a confusing concept by introducing the concept of self-control or even control of others, so that an individual or a group may believe in their heart of hearts they are seeking a positive higher path of service and light. And yet, when it comes to assessing the self or others, the measure of purity results in a desire for control and separation of that which one finds unacceptable. This, my friends, is a key that we believe is necessary for each individual to understand how a positive seeker, wishing to shine the light of the Creator and the service to others, may utilize the concept of purity to further their desire. The key to the positive path is acceptance, and the key to the negative path is control. When these two concepts are twisted amongst each other, this creates the distortions that perpetuate the necessity of incarnation and experience. Look within the self and find where those concepts of control, of harsh judgment, of assessing oneself as a failure to meet a certain level of purity arise, and sit with those ideas and with those currents within the self and observe them. Notice they play out in certain energetic patterns that have been impressed upon you, not just in this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes, and impressed upon your society so that they have been made present within the self simply by virtue of being present within the society. As you witness these currents, offering them your loving acceptance, they may dissipate, and you may find a softer way to evaluate the self. It is true that you will inevitably fail to meet a certain standard of purity again and again and again and again. This is the very purpose of your incarnation, for third density presents the opportunity to receive these reflections known to you as failures. But these reflections become most useful when one is able to receive them with patience for the self, with kindness for the self. And as you cultivate this inner patience and this inner kindness, you then cultivate a patience and a kindness that is extended outwards to your fellow other selves, and any judgment or harshness or control that was projected outwards may also be dissipated. As the self becomes loved and accepted by the self, so does the creation about one. This is not an easy task for you to achieve within your reality, for we understand the vast numerous influences that have ingrained themselves within each individual and each seeker upon your planet. But the very act of attempting to find a more loving and more accepting way to view the self and to pursue purity of the self in any capacity is such a meaningful act that it resounds to the infinite depths of your being and the infinite reaches of creation, and the creation resounds in joy with each attempt. The idea of purity has historically been used to other. We use that term as a verb to other self from self, to cause separation, to cause rift, to create inner harsh and outer harsh critical judgment for the self and other self. For you see, the way the term purity has been played with on this planet insinuates that purity is a singular position or existence or manifestation, that anything less than perfection is a mark against purity, that anything outside of perhaps what one may see as planned or quote good is a blemish, is something to distance oneself from, something to hate, is something to judge, is something to ignore, is something to bury deep within and try to forget. Dear seekers, we would like to remind you that at the core, at the center, at the root of all that is yourself, your other self, the environment in which you find yourself, every aspect of this illusion is inherently pure. Pure in the sense that it is perfect and imperfect, which is quite perfect. In this previously mentioned idea of acceptance versus control is so key in terms of relating to the term of purity, concept of purity, when self can fully and truly see the self as perfectly imperfect, as an extension of the Creator, as a piece of this larger puzzle, as an object in this illusion. One can see that one is naturally pure, for there is nothing else but purity. That is not to say that there is no room for growth, for there's always room for growth and evolution. But with knowledge and gentleness, one would afford the most beautiful aspects of creation, for you are just that. You are deserving of the patience and the gentleness. View this illusion in which we exist as a masterpiece. Be it a painting, a song, or a sculpture, it is as it is. A highly complex, intricate work of many pieces, many brushstrokes, many notes, each of them brought together in this dance to create this perfect, whole picture. There are no blemishes. There are no mistakes. The brushstroke that is you, the note that plays when your soul sings, that is pure and important and necessary to create the larger whole picture. When one can see oneself with that kind of humble but true love and regard, then one can accept oneself as pure, which then provides avenues for the self to accept one's imperfections, whether they be seen as imperfection in action, imperfection in thought, imperfection in existence in a general sense. Purity in the eyes of this instrument is not something one seeks to be, but is something one realizes one to be. What one remembers one to be. Purity is the fullest expression of the truth of the self. Purity is the free flow of love within self and out of self. It is the full realization of every aspect of the Creator as part of the self. So to seek one, we correct this instrument for one to seek purity, in the mind of this instrument is to be a self with kind and gentle hands upon the self, seeing the self as this child learning with each step, striving with each step to be the best version of the self. And by best we mean what comes naturally, what is at the core of the self, but does not mean some attainable goal, just as purity doesn't. We mean simply the freedom of self to be self. Dear seekers, we fear that we might be on repeat with this instrument. We do not want to again express how purity, the pureness of your soul, exists regardless of action. You cannot be anything other than pure. It is merely different facets of purity, different flavors, different hues. How can you not be anything other than pure? Of course, there will be moments when perhaps your actions do not fall in line with who you see yourself to be, or your thoughts, or even the way you see your physical vehicle. The realization that you are learning and can forgive yourself and learn from this experience, learn to love and accept the self, rather than demonize the self, is perhaps one of the purest manifestations of being. Acceptance is key. Love is key. Radiance of both is key. And expressing that within the self and toward other self, toward circumstance, toward every aspect, as difficult as it may be, is purity in its fullest, most vibrant expression. The subject of purity is one that, consciousness or not, will come to the attention or mentation or decision-making processes or desire-aiming procedures for he or she who seeks to become ever more one with the Creator, ever less a creature wholly identified with and asleep within the illusion, and ever more awakened to the true nature of self that always was and never will be. What is it? My friends, that question positions the self, so to speak, upon such a spectrum, illusory though it may ultimately be. What is it that makes of the human a transparent vessel, such that, as with clear window pane, the light shining through is visible and not so much, save for glimmers at a certain angle, the window itself? On one end of the spectrum, what is it that binds the entity to a consciousness locked in separation in the generation without end, often unconsciously, of suffering for the self, not infrequently inflicting suffering upon others? Illusory though it may be, that window pane that is the mind-body-spirit complex system becomes covered, shall we say, dirtied or muddled. We would not use these terms to suggest that this is in any way a lessened state or any quality which should be resisted or judged, because that which covers the window pane in this metaphor is, as we speak at length through the previous instruments, the judgment for the self, the lack of forgiveness for self and others, and the many ways in which one ensnares themselves in the patterns of the illusion, the separation-based fear, the desire to control that which is perceived as threatening to an insecure and fragile illusion of separate identity. When these window panes are obscured by that which is accumulated upon their surface, it is not just the other self or other selves which are not perceiving the Creator's light shining through the self, but it is the self who operates within a darkness, feeling perhaps this symptomology of the pain of darkness and being cut off, yearning for relief, for freedom, peace, connection, and joy, but not understanding that the source of such, as we have been alluding to tonight, and that is the recognition of the self as the Creator, the gentle and forgiving, loving embrace of the self as it is, as a perfect/imperfect representation of the Creator. In this state, as many of your people know, it within the illusion, the desires become mixed, shall we say. There is, or there may arise, a multitude of desires: desire for status, desire for imperviousness to illness, desire for accumulation of wealth, desire to chase constantly the elusive quality of pleasure, desire to run away from that which is painful. And meanwhile, at the center of this desire all along has been not so much the desire for status or wealth or prestige, but rather it has been the desire to seek and to become one, to thus discover that core desire which lives within the self, but which has become obscured and hidden or denied and abused, is what may be called a process of purification. Through the processes to which we continually commend the seeker of working with one's daily catalyst, of seeking the love in the moment, and of practicing forgiveness and balance, one's desires can become distilled. Why was it that I was seeking that pleasure? From what basis do I view the attainment of goal? How is it that I am moving forward in my days? These other such questions the seeker may ask the self in order to become increasingly conscious of the mechanisms in operation within the self at all times, and to see what is perhaps less than true and more true within the self, within a context constantly of seeking to accept and love the self, however seemingly mixed or quote-unquote impure the desires and the motivations. Through this increasing self-knowledge about that which is in alignment and perhaps less than aligned with the core of being in the seeking, that which generates suffering for self or others, and that which does not, that which moves toward control and that which moves toward love, when can come into increasing understanding of the configuration of self and that which is blocking the upward and downward love and light of the one Creator. And through persistence, when can come to refine these desires so that which is not in service to the Creator through the positive polarity or life affirming can be healed as it arises from that which is unhealed within the self. And the self can increasingly purify the heart so that it is unclouded by jealousness, resentments, competitions, complexes of superiority, inferiority, possessions, and so forth. And this unclouded become a center of love and love only, love in total, love without that which would obscure the heart. We would close with this instrument in the reaffirmation of the understanding that the self is and has been pure all along. That which seems to be other than purity is the material of the illusion which has, shall we say, accumulated around the shell of the self through the self's own actions and attitudes, and ultimately through the self's belief about who the self is, what it is made of, what its needs are. It is through contact with the truth that exists already within the heart of self, most above all, that the self comes to release the struggle and the tension and the striving in the surrender of the Creator's opinion of the self. I am Quo, and once again with this instrument, we have been very pleased with each instrument's generation of thoughts and words that we gave to each for a specific purpose, that each might provide an intimate and unique interpretation of the answer to your question this evening. We feel that this has been accomplished and that any doubts that may exist within the minds of any instruments are simply those thoughts that shall drive one onward into the further purification of the ability to channel any word or thought. It is a type of angst that exists to help move the channel forward in the channeling process. We thank each instrument for its dedication to the learning of the art of channeling, which has been continuing to improve within this group over much of what you may call time. And at this time, we feel that there is a great deal of experience that has been gathered by the continued exercise of each instrument. The exercise is much like the muscle of the physical body that gets stronger and better with continued exercise. At this time, we shall take our leave of this instrument and this group. We leave each in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator, which dwells in all and inspires all to seek the one. We are known to you as those of Quo. So before we discuss the elephant in the room, we'll definitely talk about this last portion, this huge discussion of purity, which is really just a discussion of how can I be as close to God as possible? What's the best thing that I can do in my actions, in my thoughts? That's the question, the purity of love, the purity of desire, the pure channel, the pure wisdom. And the really powerful commentators that you're already pure, you've never become unpure, but your actions can be purified. And so I found it resonated quite a bit with what I've experienced in my own seeking in my spiritual journey. So the first channeling definitely had just a beautiful response to the pandemic and how to offer service. It's a question that I was asking, and I'm so glad that Quo answered it. I've had many people come to me on both sides of the pandemic debate. I know every single argument, and I'm not here to argue any of it. That's not the point that Quo was making either. It has enhanced our catalyst, and it has brought about something in us externally. What we're seeing is more of us coming out in response to these actions. Some people believe, to each his own, we shouldn't have to worry about anybody else, and some people believe strongly that we should worry about everyone, even those who are the most unhealthy among us. And they're making the point that some of these beliefs are being manipulated. A lot of what's happening with our media and our social media is that the divisions between us are being enhanced and manipulated. They want the people that are pro-vaccine to hate the people that are anti-vaccine. They want people that want no restrictions on the pandemic to hate the people that want restrictions. And they're using it to fuel a division amongst us. And that is what I'm saying. It's not that big of a deal to where we must disunite and break apart our families and break apart our social groups and our friendships. There are people that will not watch this channel for a variety of reasons that are related to that, and I still don't understand why. I don't know what else to say about it, except that we cannot make this a reason for us to come apart. We must come together. Do as Quo says, listen to what people say, be open to it, don't be overly critical of it. Understand how when you get into your social reality bubble, which is what they're saying, it's essentially an echo chamber. So you're only going to hear the thoughts that you want to hear regarding this subject. It's happening on both sides. So then when you come out of your echo chamber, you think you know everything because you've been in this echo chamber where everybody's been telling you exactly what you wanted to hear. 99% of what I'm seeing online is people that have already made up their minds about what's going on, and then they just look for proof to validate their own opinions. There's a certain group of people that are open to the science of it and a variety of other measures, but it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. We're here no matter what, and we must find the love in the moment no matter what. So be loving towards those that you don't agree with. Don't start an argument with them. Don't judge people. Do your best to be as loving as you can in these situations, and these disunities that we have within us will dissolve. We have to move forward together. We have to come together. We have to overcome petty squabbles that other groups are using to divide us. Because the new earth fails when people are divided, and what a great way to divide us, right? I promise you, there are people that have opinions about this that have used this opinion to divide themselves from people that they love. And that is a success for the Wherein group and those of the negative group. They're just jumping for joy for every single person who chooses to use this catalyst as a form of division. Try to find the common ground. That's what we got to do. Have compassion for every belief. Some people believe these things because of what their parents tell them, because of what their teachers tell them, because of the community that they're in, and you cannot use their belief as a reason for hate or division or judgment even. Forget about it. Can we go a couple of weeks and just not talk about it and forget about it? Can we see what happens? In any case, we can be of service as best we can. These are important issues to remember. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.